Press star 6 to unmute.
Oh, sorry, hold on, the recording wasn't working right. Sorry, everybody. Good morning again. Thanks for joining us today for our DevTest CA World Recap. We're joined today by Stefana, Muller, and Kraus, who want to share some of the news and happenings from CA World last week. Before I hand off to them, just a reminder that if you have any questions along the way, please use the Q&A functionality right in the WebEx window. If you don't see the Q&A box in the lower right of the screen, click on the question mark icon in the upper right, and it will open up for you. And with that, I'll hand things off to Chris and Stefana. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Aunt Lynn.
Hey, thanks, Chris, for presenting the slides. It's Stefana. If you just go to the first slide, we're going to start off with a little bit of fun after the legal disclaimer. So the legal disclaimer tells you that anything we present today is not a warranty, just to let you guys know. But I wanted to recap CA World, and that's why our slides kind of came up last minute now. Chris and I, and as well as many of our team members and many of our customers joined CA World last week in Las Vegas, and we were at the Mandalay Bay Convention Center. It was a great conference, actually. Really a lot of people, 4,000 attendees, about 800 CA employees on top of that. You had packed rooms. We had a few fun education events, pre-conference and then post-conference. A lot of this material I'm going to share with you at the end of this presentation today so that you know where to get the content from. But here's some pictures of the show floor of our keynote speech and that our team took. I took these pictures from Twitter, so if you guys want to go take a look at some of the funny pictures that came out of CA World in Vegas, they did leave Las Vegas, yes. So you can go out to Twitter and look for hashtag CA World. Next slide. Here's the next one. This is a few pictures of our demo booths, including our team. I wanted to just highlight a few of the people on the team, like Anand Kamiswaran, who ran the demo booth section for us, Daniel Bingham, who's our architect, who came in and did and played a demo God at the conference and spent a lot of time on his feet. Same thing with Adi Pandit and Kastu Bordi and Ulrich Voigt. These are the guys that you see every day out on our community, so you'll probably recognize their faces a little bit. On the bottom left, we also received an award from IT Central Station for the #1 ranked service virtualization product, which was kind of cool. I wasn't expecting that, but as you can see, our marketing team there getting really excited in the bottom left of the screen. We also have Dwayne McNair up at the top. He's sitting next to me in the red shirt, and I didn't mention him, but he is the VP of Development. He was there meeting with customers, which is kind of cool to have someone from the engineering side meeting with customers every day. Next slide. And we went to a few concerts, as you can see here. I put a picture of Sheryl Crow. If everyone knew, Stefana was standing right up front at Sheryl Crow concert. A few of our team members up in the upper left were sitting in the bleachers. They were fine with that, seeing Fall Out Boy and Sheryl Crow. And then we have our team on the right side here. And that's when Sheryl personally handed me her drumstick. Not true, guys, by the way, but I've been telling that story. Here's a picture. I've been trying to take selfies with customers. I think you guys would probably run away from me fast and furious if you knew that. But here, Mary Tompkins on the left is one of our customers, and on the right is Pat Downing. He's a customer as well. They were at CA World and having a great time, and I was like, wait a minute, we have to take a selfie if we're having a good time. At the top, we have AutoTrader, our customer who won an award for the most innovative use of service virtualization. And I think that's the end of my picture. So if we go through the deck today, we're going to go through meeting the team. We have a few new team members I wanted you to meet. They might not be on the call because they're all in training today, but I wanted to put faces to names and so you know them when you meet them out in the community. Then we'll go meet the 9.0 products. So Chris and I will go through the basics of SV and CAI 9.0, and then we'll dive deep into each product area. I also have a slide on what you should do next, including links to content and information and videos and things like that so that you don't have to try to consume everything we're presenting today. Reminder, like Len said earlier in the beginning of the call, question and answer, please use the Q&A panel at the upper right. You can actually go scroll up to the top and use the Q&A panel. I see that Vikram is trying to get the dial-in number. We are recording this call, so if you don't have audio now or missed the audio in the beginning, you'll be able to see the recording. Okay, next slide. Let's go meet the team. So you guys know us, I think. I hope you do by this time. Stefana, Muller, this is me speaking on the top left, and then Chris Kraus. Chris, give a hey.
Hey.
You're on mute. Chris and I manage the products. We're the product managers, and we have, between the two of us, we've got smiley faces, but between the two of us, we're handling the full DevTest 9.0 product. So I handle service virtualization in the common components across the DevTest portfolio, and Chris handles continuous application insight and CA application test. The three new people on the bottom of your screen, I did introduce AK before, but we haven't introduced Mickey or Daniel. I wanted to introduce these guys to you because they are our new product owners. They joined in, some of them were at CA prior and working on the products, but never in this role. The new product owner role is a way for us to touch our customers a little bit more closely and have the ability to get in touch with us a little bit more readily. I think the challenge is with 2 people and many customers, it was just too much, and now we have 5 people to kind of get in touch with and work with and so on. Our product owners, Anand Kamiswaran, we call him AK in case you were wondering. He's running product owner for service virtualization. Mickey Milanashek, and Mickey's probably going to kill me because I always get his name wrong. And he's the product owner for DevTest Common Components. And then we have Dan Mazet. Dan is the product owner for Continuous Application Insight. These 3 folks, again, newer to our team, but have been very popular in the community. So if you're asking a question and want to tag them in a question so that you can get a quick answer, do that. We're expecting them to, be out there often. So again, just screenshot the screen if you need it, and that'll help you have an understanding of who the team is. Now let's dive into the products. So next slide. Meet the product. So Chris and I have a quick overview slide, and then we go into each product line. This overview slide, I go through just to, we went GA with 9.0 on the 16th of November, so last Monday. If you all did not see, we were going GA about once a month prior to that, and then we skipped a month and went GA with 9.0. So anything between 8.0 and 9.0 is considered part of the 9.0 product line, anything post 8.0. So we've combined all of that stuff into this launch, and we have a bunch of information and videos and so on about it. The focus of service virtualization for the 9.0 product was helping our customers expand adoption of the product across their enterprise. We are trying to enable that cross-team collaboration with a single web user interface. You know this is our DevTest portal. We're trying to make sure that our products are easy to gain access to, consume, and find value from. So you'll see some enhancements there that I'll share with you. We also have simplified the creation of virtual services so that anyone really who has data can create virtual services through spreadsheets all the way through to, request response pairs or recording on the wire. And last but not least, we've added support of both new and legacy protocols. So we'll add some color to what those newer and legacy protocols are that we've added support for in this release. Chris, you want to just give an overview of CAI?
Sure. So with CAI, we initially in 8.0 talked about automate the automation. So this was definitely a maturing of functionality within this release. So what we looked at is how can we automatically generate test cases that are, quality assurance or quality engineers are actually spending hundreds of hours writing by hand. So actually getting the test cases written so that you don't have to modify them. You don't have to spend hours working on them. The other thing is we found that customers, while doing this, if their goal is to move their regression tests from, say, 20% coverage to 9% coverage, so what we did is we actually looked at how do we increase the fidelity of the test cases and accuracy of them so they're actually testing real-world scenarios versus just, say, nonsense tests itself. And the idea is we want you to help reduce your regression cycle time by automating those tests versus doing it manually, moving closer to the API, because we don't want people to start skipping tests with their releases. We actually want people to, when they have a release, do all the testing required for that release itself versus saying, well, what can we not test to get this out the door?
So on the theme of making our product more consumable and easier to find, use, depending on where you are and who you are in an organization, our service virtualization tool seems to be one of the first steps that many customers go and take a look at. So what we've tried to do in this major release is provide many different ways for you to try out service virtualization before you license it, maybe even before you use it within your company. Even if you do have an enterprise license today, this would be valuable to you if you're trying to increase adoption across your business. If, say, for instance, your developers are not even looking at the tool and they don't want to know about it, you can offer them different options here rather than the big enterprise product that we've all grown to love. So what we've got here in the developer journey for service virtualization is, frankly, you can start where you want. A lot of you who are on the phone today have already used service virtualization on-prem or in the cloud, right? You're using the full-blown product. Well, if you're trying to get folks to join in on the service virtualization bandwagon, you may want to try out giving them the opportunity to look at Test Doubles, which is our open source tool. This was launched at CA World. It is available on Docker Hub, on GitHub, and NPM. So anyone who's out there using one of those platforms can actually pull down the source code, can run this Test Doubles, use it, can contribute to it. Again, an open source project from our team. It allows you to record and play back virtual services. The second thing on my list here is the SaaS offering that we have called SV for Developers. If you go to servicemock.io, you'll take a look at that, and you can actually create REST-based virtual services and deploy them and have them hosted, so you don't actually need an environment. This is, again, another free solution for people to test out if they want to check out what service virtualization is. The third thing on the screen is new. You've probably never seen this before prior. It's called Service Virtualization on Demand. This is the first offering on Azure, Microsoft Azure, for service virtualization. You can go to ca.com/SV on demand to take a look at this product. It gives you a 30-day free trial and then charges you per hour if you'd like post the 30-day free trial of the software and of the Azure hosting environment. So it's a product out on the Azure Marketplace. You can click a few buttons to deploy the virtual machine, and you have it available to you. Again, SV on Demand is available on Azure today, and we're going to be expanding that to other hosted platforms as well. The cool thing about SV on Demand is that this is really something that anyone can use, including folks that have already an enterprise license of our software, because the product that is out on SV on Demand is exactly the same as the product that you're using on-prem. And the last but not least is our hybrid solution. Our solution is called CA Service Virtualization that you're using today, most of you at least. This is enterprise license, so you license it either by user or with an enterprise license agreement through CA. You can deploy this wherever you'd like. As a matter of fact, many of our customers are deploying in the cloud, and this is where I wanted to call out a few features that we've added. We've added Docker support, and we're also looking into adding AMI support, so an ability for you to just grab a Docker image or grab an AMI and deploy it to the environment of your choosing. We also put out a new architecture diagram of how to use service virtualization with cloud deployment that gives you better best practice, if you would, that will help you use this technology in hybrid or on-prem or cloud environments, wherever you need them. So again, the point of this is that we've created many different ways that you can get started with service virtualization. This is really helpful for education of your existing enterprise folks, anyone in the development or QA organization that doesn't have the software yet. Maybe you don't have a license for them yet, and they want to check it out. Next slide, Chris. Thank you. So what is new in 9.0? Outside of the consumable nature of service virtualization, we've added a ton of new features. And if you want to take a look at details, we're not going to be able to get through all the details in this call today, but we have videos of each and every feature that we've deployed, and they're out on YouTube. So I'm going to send you that link after this call. But what I will do today is just go through what we've changed with creating virtual services, editing, monitoring, and all of our common components. I guess you can say this slide is just a high-level overview, and then we're going to dive deep into each of these areas. Chris, do you want to go into the high-level overview for CAI again?
Sure. So what we've done is worked on the new ticketing workflows, so finding your ability to find defects within the applications. And then we found a lot of customers needed to remotely calibrate their agents. They wanted to get more low touch there. And then the biggest thing was working on making sure that we could actually generate test cases and virtual services for you, because we found people were interested in understanding the paths and the defects, but they just needed faster time to market, getting more virtual services and test cases there. So that's all the work has been done around making sure that we can do database validation, they're very high fidelity, and then making sure we're generating the right test cases for you. So I think now we'll head right into the new features, specifically in service virtual.
Yeah, we'll dive deep now. So guys, if you have any questions, let's take a look at the Q&A panel and see if there's any Q&A out there. I know we're driving into this quite quickly, so if you have questions along the way, or did you do this, or did you enhance that, let us know. I'm going to go through this quickly so that we can drive into a demo and then go into Chris's features as well on CAI. On the creating side of service virtualization, we've enhanced by creating an ability for you to build a virtual service through Excel or CSV files. So that's called data-driven virtual services. So now you have the ability to create that virtual service with those types of files. So this is helpful if you are getting the data from a business analyst or maybe a test data management solution like our own TDM solution, and you need to import it into a virtual service. You could import it in, you could maintain it within that virtual service, or you can maintain it in this Excel spreadsheet. Over on the right side of the screen, you can see how you can map the spreadsheet to the data set in the VSI or virtual service image. You can see there, that's one of the easier ways to map a very large spreadsheet to a VSI image. Request response pairs, you all should have seen this before, but we have this in the product. It's been there since 8.2, I believe, where you can create a virtual service through request response pairs in the DevTest portal. We've migrated that over, and we will continue and enhance that. We also added the ability to record a virtual service from TCP transactions in the portal. But in the past, it was only HTTP. Now you can add, you can change the dropdown and select TCP. In addition to that, if you're recording a REST protocol, we have a new REST data protocol configuration screen that allows you to kind of error check and take a look at what rules were created. This is really helpful, especially when you have very unique URIs, or there's some variables in there that aren't being selected, and so on. Oops, my freeze out, there it goes. What else do we have? Swagger 2.0. So we support Swagger 2.0 as of about 8.2 in our product, and we continue to enhance that. You can actually import Swagger 2.0 spec and create a virtual service from that. We also have in the DevTest in the workstation. So it's in the older UI, but we have the ability to record through IBM MQ and RabbitMQ. These are new enhanced features. If you are doing IBM MQ recording prior to 8.3 of our product, you need to upgrade using the new IBM MQ steps. These are much easier. They have new assets so that you don't have to retype things in, you don't make as many mistakes, and you have a lot of configuration options. Same thing with RabbitMQ. Okay. Next. There we go, editing. So the other thing we added outside of the virtual service creation area is we've added some enhancements to editing a virtual service. I'm going to take a look at this. I'm going to demo for you in a few minutes the find and replace functionality, but we also have a new copybook editor. Again, if you're using copybooks in an older version of our product, you're really going to want to upgrade, because this is a new user interface to create that mapping file that didn't exist in the past. And in the past, you had to figure out how to create the mapping file manually. So next slide. And monitoring. So I love this feature, by the way, because it came in. We didn't know if it would get into the release, and it's doing awesome. One of the key things that our customers, you guys have been telling us that we need to enhance is the ability to monitor virtual services, to start, stop them, edit them, and so on, as one or in groups and things like that. This is all available to you in the new Virtual Service Monitor, which is in the DevTest portal, so you don't have to go into the old server console anymore to look at the virtual services that are running or the recordings that are running. Again, you have those group actions as well. There are some in-context errors and details too, so if there's an error, it will drive you into the details, so when you're troubleshooting, you don't have to go searching around. Next slide. I think it's the demo is next, or the common components. Where we go, common components, there we go. So what else did we do from a common components perspective? I talked about the Docker containers earlier. That's been out there for a while, for a few months now, so take a look at the demos on that and how to use them. We also enhanced our access control tools. So in access control in the past, you'd have to map individual users to a specific role in our system. Now, instead of mapping users, you can map LDAP groups. So if you're using LDAP as your authentication module, you could actually map those existing groups to a DevTest group. That's really helpful, again, with managing many users of the tool. So if you're an administrator of our tool, this is probably one of your favorite features that we're showing today. In addition to that, we added a new reporting console. So the reporting console is, I'm going to dive into the demo now on that, and Chris is also going to cover some of the reports that are functional from test and CAI, but I'll go through the virtual service area. Okay, Chris, could you hand me a presenter? Awesome, thank you.
Down the ball.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my browser, everyone. Again, if there's any questions, Chris, just let me know if you see a question, interrupt, it's okay.
Yep.
So here's the new DevTest portal. If you haven't seen it before, I'd be surprised because that means you haven't been on any of these calls, but you've probably seen it. The cool part is that we've enhanced this significantly. Like I said earlier, we have the new create options, virtual service from recording, from RR pair, copybook bundle. If you go into the virtual service via recording, you have the new drop-down that allows you to select TCP or HTTP. You could imagine where the future goes with this one, right? We'll have many protocols that you can create from in the future. What else do we have here? On the left navigation, you have the ability to manage all your different resources. So you can actually select all resources, and it will show you everything in a project, or including tests and test suites and data sets and so on. Or you can select a specific thing like virtual services, and it will allow you to select that specific information. Again, you have the filters and the ability to filter through. So if I have different projects, I can filter through Bank 3 v5 versus v8 or whatnot. So let's take a look at the find and replace. I'm going to go into one of the older projects called Kiosk v8. And as it opens up, this Kiosk v8 project is a recording of a bank. So we've done this before, but I'm going to show you how you can find and replace in the new screen. Let me just make my screen a little bit bigger so you can see. So as you can see, there's a few different things that you haven't seen before. We have a new thing called filters. So if you take a look at the filters, you have the ability to select which area you want to search. So instead of searching everything in an image, you can actually select, one area and say, in the request arguments, I want to search for user. And then it kind of autofills for you and says, well, we found user object and username, which one do you want? And I'll select username, and it will show me everywhere that that's available. So it brings up this screen here that shows me everywhere it's available, and it highlights it below. So if I go and click on this conversational thing here, you can actually see that it highlights it below. I can actually go down. And let me go back up. As I scroll up, I'm scrolling in the wrong area. There we go. Let me go back to the stateless argument here. You can see username is there. The other thing that you can do, and I'm going to change the filters, take them off. It'll actually find it in the entire service image. You can see the difference now. I'm going to go over into search options as well. So there's some other options. You can do a whole word search. You can match case. You can do a regex search as well. This is really helpful if you're trying to replace information specifically. So I'm going to actually go in and close out my search right now, and I'm going to find something that I want to search for. I'm going to search for WSDL, W-S-D-L, and I'm going to replace it. Okay, you see WSDL is everywhere. Now let's figure out where we want to search for. Maybe I only want it in the signature argument, and when I see it in the signature argument, I'm going to replace it. So I'm going to say, get that out of there. I want in the request argument. There you go. You see how I filtered by that? And then I can go in and do a replace. And I can replace all as well. This is the key functionality, again, if you're trying to remove things out of your service image, keep it up to date, find new data, enter in new data, the replace and the replace all really help. As you can see, my WSDL has changed to capital WSDL and exclamation point. And then I can go back and find it. Please excuse me as my server goes down. That's a typical demo thing, and I could replace it. So again, this is the new find and replace functionality. You can do this in any of your service images. What else do we have in the service image, in the new DevTest portal rather, is the reporting. So if you take a look at the virtual service metrics over here, Chris will go through the CAI metrics and the testing, but there's a ton of information here. I'll open them up for you so you can see, but you can see these are all the CAI metrics. Tons of reports that you have availability. They're all available to you, and then you can PDF them, you can email them, or you can give a link to them so you can share them with your team. Also the same thing with the testing metrics, so any of your test reports, suite execution, your comparisons between tests, and so on. I'm going to go through the virtual service metrics. If you take a look, you can see things like the virtual service response time. I'm not sure if I'll have any data here because I haven't run any virtual services today, but we'll see. Just give it a second. I don't have data today. Great, Steph. Great, your demo is not working. Well, the reason why is I didn't actually do it, and I did it on the 16th, so let's take a look. And we'll go back to the metrics and see if I can find a metric that will show up. Server availability. As you can see, the server availability report will come up because I've had my virtual service environment running for a few days. As you can see on the 11th, on the 17th when I was doing demos, I actually took it down for a certain amount of time. This server availability report is really helpful because you can drill into it if you'd like to and click in, and it will show you, what the services that were running at that time, if you had anything running. Or if you're looking for more information, you can actually give people the stats of, hey, my uptime's been 100% or 99% and so on. So again, you have more stats here than you had in the past, and I will populate my stats while Chris is presenting now and get you guys a real visual of the reports. Chris, do you want to go back to your presentation on the features of CAI, and I'll do some Q&A on SV at the same time.
Okay.
Hold on, I'll give you a presenter.
So with the, as Stefana mentioned earlier, this release started out with all the new features after 8.0. So we did our monthly release cadence and started delivering new features out. As many of you know, you saw them in the sandbox to start with, and they went GA. So the idea was once we got to a story complete, and if there's something visual for you to see, we put them in the sandbox. And if the big context of the feature took 3 or 4 stories, they accumulated in the sandbox, and then they went GA with one of the dot releases. So this list is all the different features around documenting transactions, seeing the visibility, and then what we did to give you new RR pairs along the way, the new features. In continuing on with that, I was going to go over some very specific features that we found the most traction with customers in beta or customers who've already worked with. So the first thing was, given the API economies and people's desire to test the APIs below the user interface, what we found is atomic API testing, like we did in version 8, wasn't good enough. People needed to understand that below a user interface, one click of a button caused 15 REST calls or 10 REST calls, and then you needed to navigate 3 or 4 pages to actually test the functionality. The trick is the APIs below that needed to be run in the same order the UI did, and then you need to have correlation of data, or the output of one step and one page became the input to the next step. So what we did is we took our document transactions functionality, which lets you specify an IP address and a time range, and we now generate all of your API tests below the user interface. So this could be from a mobile device, or it could be from a web UI, or maybe a FAT client, anything that has an IP address. What happens now is we're generating all the test cases for the APIs in the context of the user's journey through the workflow, and then what happens is we correlate them, and this basically prevents you from having to manually figure out what the APIs are, figure out, if I place an order, the order number comes back, goes into the next step, and so forth. So we feel that these test cases are something that you will actually be able to run and know you're testing the same functionality that the users do as they walk through the UI. The trick is you can run them much faster. So our internal experience is if we took with our release automation tool, they moved to a nice new web UI. It took them 2.5 hours to do a full end-to-end manual test case. When we used this technique on it, it turned into 220 API calls that could run back in 10 minutes. So saving wall clock, but actually testing the same functionality without driving on the web page itself. The next thing is template-based test generation. What we found is there's a little nuance. Once you get to the APIs, that means you're not part of your single sign-on structure, you're not using your inheritance of your desktop to sign on to your application. So we needed to make sure it was very easy to get the context of your access control into your test cases. Maybe you wanted to do some things like set up or your tests before they run or clean up afterwards. So what we did is we came up with a template mechanism. So you can actually write a Lisa test case that you can, say, log in, get your access control, set your cookies, anything like that. The nice thing is one person who understands how that complex things work, they set that up. And then when we generate our test cases, we just point to this template, we add them to that step. So what happens is there's literally a marker step, this CAI template placeholder. That's where we're going to interject all of our test cases. So any filters, assertions at the global level you've set up are now inherited in your test case itself. So it makes it really easy to, for people to generate their test cases. When we introduced our baseline testing in 8.0, and then we started introducing our functional testing in 8.3, the first thing that people asked about was, well, how do I know that the database got updated? I don't trust the UI, and I don't trust the APIs below it. People tend to hide their error messages in user interfaces. They do a lot of creative things to do that. How do I know that the system of record 2 and 3 layers below actually got updated? So what we did is we looked at the paths and figured out that we could reverse back any SQL statements that do create, updates, and delete. If we see a path where you say add a customer and an address to your system, we will in turn look for those insert statements and reverse back SQL statements to validate that the customer is inserted and the address is inserted. So we'll invoke and verify the database there. What we found is customers tell us it would take them like 8 to 16 hours, 1 to 2 days, to actually write a test case to find the database, to find the database table, to find the right column, so they could actually write a test case that invokes and verifies. Since we have that data available in our paths because of the agents, what we're now doing is generating test cases that validate the database layer. So you can make sure even though between your UI and the back end there's a message bus, an MQ that's asynchronous, we'll verify that those systems of record are actually being updated. So we found this is going to save hundreds of hours of editing test cases, and they're actually going to be, you'll know that you're not just cursory testing an API, systems of records are being updated. Now, this next feature about high fidelity is quite literally, I challenged the developers, and they did a ton of great work because I was very unreasonable asking for more and more excellence on their part. I basically said, every time I write a test case, I'm manually adding filters, I'm updating assertions with filter values, I'm doing all these things to make sure my test data and dynamic data doesn't break my test case when it runs over and over again. So I gave them the challenge that they had to be very high fidelity, the same way I would personally write the test case in the user interface. So what we've done is we identified dynamic data that's returned from one step using another API. We've identified input data to your first APIs and associated them with data sets. So basically, your templates are highly dynamic, but they can now be used as a data set. They're very data set driven, so now you can actually update your test cases by adding more rows of data to it. So your test case is literally a highly functioning test that's dynamically validated, and then your input data is dynamic. So when you add a new row of data, the test will just run. Okay. And then, of course, reports. So as Stefana mentioned, in the new version, we've moved the reports from the old Flash Flex into the new portal. So everybody's thrilled about that. Better PDF generation, easier to integrate, much nicer visually. So one thing that customers ask us is, I know what, say, I ran in production because application performance management tells me what web services and EJBs I called. But I don't actually know what I ran when I ran a regression cycle. Did I cover all my web service endpoints? Did all my EJBs get exercised? Did all my stub calls get made? So what we've done is we allow you to, while you're in development and in your testing environments, we'll start giving you metrics reports to tell you what web services were run, how many times were they run, what were the average response times, min and max response times on those. So you can actually build an inventory to say, if I run, say, a user acceptance test, what was actually tested, and did I actually test, say, one bit of code 100 times but not anything else. So lots of reports there, and you'll see there's a nice bit on performance. What we've found is that moving your code to faster and faster machines doesn't necessarily make the bottlenecks go away. It just makes everything relatively faster. So we honestly believe if you start getting these types of metrics while you're developing, what's your top 3 slowest SQL statements, what's your top 5 slowest EJBs, you can address those during development and start removing of bottlenecks early in the life cycle, because faster hardware just means things are running relatively faster or slower. And then the last thing I want to talk about is finding common APIs. What we found is people don't have great system documentation, and they don't know how systems are interrelated. And this could be because of mergers and acquisitions or acquired code, or someone wrote it and they didn't update the Excel spreadsheet. So what we've done is we've created an algorithm that says anytime a inbound service, that could be a REST service, a subservice, an EJB, what have you, is called by more than one agent, what we want to do is identify those as common APIs and then allow you to generate test cases and virtual services from them. So why is this important to you? Well, basically, if you have, say, a load balancer in your environment and you want to generate your virtual services, we all know it's complicated to deal with the load balancer, capture the transactions from 3 different endpoints. So what we want to do is actually observe those in one location and then generate your virtual services from that. Same thing for functional testing. If you've got a set of common services and they're leveraged, say, from your mobile application server, and they're leveraged from, say, your Jetty, your web server itself, anything that's leveraged from both of those becomes common, and you need a representative data for each one of them. So you need to understand, even though they're making the same calls, what data is associated with them. So they basically can provide a test case as, here's my consumption of the service, Mr. Producer. Please run this. If these are failing, I need to know, because that means our contract or my ability to consume your service is no longer working correctly. So I'm going to stop my sharing. And Stefana, do you want me to pass back to you, or shall we open for questions and answers?
Sure, that will be great. We have a few questions in the queue, and I'm trying to clarify a few of them.
Okay. So let's see, one of the first questions was, love the data-driven virtual services. Can it be used for performance testing? So with the new data-driven virtual service, we are actually dynamically reading Excel spreadsheets and comma-separated lists, so it is not as performant as a traditional virtual service image. So we suggest you traditional VSIs for load and performance, and they use the data-driven so it makes it easier to collaborate with your, say, business analysts or QA people for your functional testing.
And Chris, there was a question from Vikram on log extraction of request response pairs.
Yes. So,
do you want me to read that?
Yeah, and that can be used for simulating any errors directly, allowing developers to debug their code. So, yes, what we've done is we found that people have started logging production errors with Splunk. So what we've done is we've created the ability to read Splunk or query Splunk. So if you've got your Splunk query and you've got your sample RR pairs there, whether they're positive or negative, you can query those. It'll place them into the data structure and continuous application insight, and then you can generate test cases or virtual services associated with them. We have other things that will let you, say, through our RESTful interfaces and our flat file readers to read log files, but we think most people have looked at Splunk as an easy way to get that production data back to development. We do that, and we support the REST and other interfaces. Okay, and there's a question about also if extracting request response pairs from logs based on a signature. So if you're logging those and you have that access through Splunk, you can do that through a Splunk query. If not, what happens is we will just place all the logs into continuous application insight, and then we'll let you do full text queries on there to find specific operations for data. So you can subset them to decide what you want to generate a virtual service or test data from. So those type of capabilities are things we've built into CAI. We call them agent light, so ways to get data into the virtual service without actually instrumenting, say, a Java agent.
I guess my question for the person who asked the question is, what would you do with the data once you extract it? Because then the answer is CAI will allow you to, take a look at things a little bit differently, and that would help with troubleshooting. The question is, what else do you want to do with the data? I wanted to actually, Chris, share the Forward Cars app and the new VSI monitor. So if you have a chance to pass me the ball, perfect.
I'll keep reading questions.
Okay, great. And interrupt me when you see a question come in that we can answer verbally, so that'll be fine. Let's take a look now. There's a new app that's embedded into the product that's delivered in 9.0. It's called Forward Cars. I wanted to show you guys how it works so that you can use it for demoing our service virtualization and CAI tools to your end users within your companies. So just to give you an overview, the localhost 3434 is the web app that's on the front end of this Forward Cars app. The back end is on port 7000, and you can end up changing that port of where it's pointing, like if you wanted to change it to point to a recorder by going in here and just updating the port. And that's an ESB layer. There's a few other layers in the Forward Cars app, and we're going to be blogging about this later, so you'll get more detail should you want to go in a little bit more deeply, especially if you want to do JMS transactions. But we're going to do some REST transactions initially here. So in order for you to do a recording of this, you can actually click the recording, virtual service via recording tab and enter a recording name. And once you do that, and actually I have that name already, go figure. Give it a second. Okay, and once I put a recording name in, I can actually change the target host to localhost 7000. Like we said before, that's the ESB layer. And let's just give it some time to refresh. If my ESB layer isn't running, it's not going to point. Let's go take a look at the ESB layer. So Chris, don't you love it when your demo stops running?
No.
It stops running when I had it all set up and ready to go, and
yeah,
it's not working. Welcome to live demos. Well, you know what we'll do? We'll have a follow-up on this, on forward cards and how to use the app and how to use it for a demo. Right now, my back-end ESB server is not running, so I can't point to it and run a recording. What can I do, though? What can I do? I can actually show you the new virtual service monitor, though. So why don't we go and deploy some virtual services so that you can see them in the monitor. I go into Manage Virtual Services. I can go and see a few, and I'll actually deploy. And I'll deploy a few more. You can actually deploy them from different projects, which is kind of easy to see. And you could also, another thing that you can do is that you can deploy something and you can group tag it and say, this is group development. And let's just do one more. I'm not actually going to play back any of these virtual services, so because they're all on the same port. So let's go look at the virtual services. We have 4 virtual services deployed, and now we'll go into the new monitor. So if you look at the monitor here under virtual service environments, it's grouped out by environment. So if you have more than one virtual service environment, you can actually see the list of them here and open them up in different tabs. As you can see, I did start a recording for Cars 234. I also had a recording offline that was working before. You can see that there's an error on my Cars 234 saying, hey, I can't find your endpoint, localhost 7000. You could actually drive into there if you'd like, so it tells you that there's the problem. What else can I do here? Under the category, you can actually filter by virtual service or recording. So if I want to just see the virtual services, not things that are recording, I can actually filter. And in addition to that, you can filter by group. So if I wanted to just see the things in the dev group, I can do that. My favorite part of the feature in this release is that you can actually go in and multi-select things, stop, start, and delete them. You could also update the think time. You can do a bunch of things as a group. This really helps if you're managing hundreds of virtual services and you need to do, as a group, take down all the ones that are in the group dev or update the execution mode of everything in the group, QA. So you have that ability here. In addition, you have the ability to go into inline and change things. So say I wanted to add this to group dev, I can do that inline and you can save it. And it saves right there. You don't have to actually open up the virtual service to do that. And now you can filter by group dev and see everything in dev. By the way, it's not case sensitive, the group name, so you can keep it as a uppercase or lowercase. It'll come back the same. Chris, any other questions in the queue while I'm chatting away here?
Yes, so there was a question about if we were going to support databases for data-driven virtual services, and my response was, hey, it's on the roadmap, but you need to go to communities and vote it up, because we've seen that request there. The most votes wins.
So let's take a look at communities of where that is, guys. And this is really important because our new product owners are out there on the community daily taking a look at the ideas. So if you go under content, under ideas, you can search for database and you'll probably find that virtual service, that request. Hey, Chris, what was the other question?
The other question was, if I get a no match in my virtual service image, can I fetch the response and from a real system update it? And it's like, actually, yes. In 8.0, we added the model healing mode to the virtual service. So when you create your virtual service after 8.0, there are new model steps, which say for HTTP, it remembers where you recorded your virtual service from. So we will, if we get a no match, we'll pass through to the real system, get the response back. You can just use that and log it, or you can activate model healing mode. And what that will do is that will put that request response pair into the virtual service image in memory, so the next time you ask for it, it's there. So
Yep,
those are
and that's the learning area, Chris, right here that I'm showing on the screen. They can actually enable the learning mode right here.
Yep, so those were added in 8.0. If you created a virtual service in 7.5.2, it doesn't have this ability in the execution mode. You need to update your model to be these new ones generated in 8.0 forward.
Now, and this is how you change to learning mode right in this UI here, execution mode. So once you deploy it, you can actually change the execution mode prior to deploy, or you can go in here and select the learning mode. Learning mode applies the virtual service differences immediately, whereas you can actually, there's another option where you can apply the differences later through image validation mode. Any other questions? So let's get some feedback from the group on the phone. I think it's always helpful, and the chat area you can actually send to the panelists or the host in chat. I'd like to see if how many of you have used Service Virtualization 9.0 so far, or if you know where to get it. So is anyone questioning how do they get Service Virtualization 9.0? Let's take a look at the chat and see if anyone's questioning. In the Q&A panel, Vinay is asking how I stop and start a group. Good question. I can do that now. And again, if you have any, if you don't know how to get access to 9.0 to take a look at it, please let us know in the chat and we'll show you how to get there. So let me close out on the Q&A panel so you can see this. So we just selected a group here on, let's go back and do it again. So you can see here I can select multiple items in that group. I can actually, instead of doing that, I will go into the group here and go and search dev. So now everything that's shown is dev. I can then select all by using this button on the top, and it gives me different options. And the options are based on the virtual services and whether or not there's similarities. The only option that's similar between these three virtual services is the ability to remove them from the VSC. Let's take a look if I unclick on one of them, if anything shows up differently. Let's take, just give me 1 second. See, there's multiple selected here. So now I can actually go in and say, I want to take 2 of them and remove it. I don't want to remove everything. Are you sure to want to remove them? Yes. I don't have a transaction count right now on these virtual services, but if I did, I could actually select 2 and change the transaction count. Here's another one. I can restart or reset the transaction count. Now, there's no transaction, so you're not going to see a change, but you can see that something tried to do a reset. Here's another option here. You can update the capacity of the virtual services together. And you can see that once it does that, it will redeploy the virtual service in that sense. I think what's happening is my backend server is down, and it's not going to redeploy anything. So there you go. It's not doing anything because I have this VSE environment is down. I can update the think time scale, if you can see here. I also have the ability, let's take a look, update the group tag together. So I can say, I want this group tag to be QA. And now I've updated the group tag. So all of that allows you to see different things in the virtual service environment and manage things as a group. Let's go and deploy a few more so that I can show you how it works. Chris, yep.
So I think we're coming up to the top of the hour. So people, we have questions. We've tried to answer them here. If you have more questions, Lynn will post this recording out onto communities. If you push the questions there, we will monitor and answer more questions there also.
Yep. So, and like I said, we have also, Chris, could you put up that last slide, do you think? You know what, I think I have it. Let me share. I want to give everyone the links as a follow-up. Give me 1 second. So the last slide I wanted to share with you guys is the follow-up and the links. Where do I get more information about 9.0? If you want, just take a screenshot of this screen so that you can follow up after. We have a blog with the announcement of GA 9.0 and what's available. We also have links to all the CA World presentations that were presented by CA staff. We can't share our customer presentations out there, but you do have all of the access to both presentations, blog entries, and so on that our staff had presented at CA World. That's at the bit.ly/CA World 15 link. In addition to that, Chris and I put together some videos, so you can take a look at those videos out on YouTube. There's some bit.ly links for you right there. What else do we want you to do? We want you to go and install 9.0. Let us know how it works for you. Let us know if you like it, if things are working. If they're not working, let us know through the community. Another option is to take a selfie with SV like we did last year. I take a picture with you running 9.0. We're going to have a contest on this on Twitter, so definitely take a look at that and see if you put your selfie with SV out there. We'll be sending out prizes to randomly to the folks that put them out there. I did see one go out today, so I'm excited about that. Last but not least, our NPS survey. I'm going to be sending out an email to everyone in our community about the NPS survey. So if you can take our survey and tell us how you really feel about our product, about our team, about what we've done in the past year. This is a way that we can measure our team and our performance over time and really get candid feedback from our customers. So we would appreciate it if you took the time to take that survey. For those of you who are CA employees on the phone, please do not click on the link because it looks like an abandon. This is only for customers. And that's all I have. Chris, anything else from you?
Nope, other than a couple of questions people ask, like operating systems supported and is there documentation on the new access control? So just remember our documentation moved to wiki.ca.com. You don't have to log in. You can log in with your user credentials if you want for support. And the platforms are there in the installation manual, and then in the installation manual is also how to configure the access control.
Yeah, so what Chris showed, and I have to log in because I'm on the CA network, but what Chris told you is wiki.ca.com. If you go to wiki.ca.com/DTS, as in DevTest Solutions, you'll get right to the latest documentation. So that'll redirect you to 9.0. As you can see here, he mentioned the installing manual right on the left. That'll give you all the information about install and the pre-release, pre-installation instructions, and so on. You can also search. I like the search here. It's pretty robust. It'll find the information you're looking for. Thank you, Chris. Thanks for bouncing back and forth between you and I, and it's been a great call. I know we're over by 4 minutes, and we have another call to jump off onto. So team on the phone and customers on the phone, I wanted to thank you for joining today. And if you do have questions for us, definitely tag us in posts on the community. We get back to you very quickly through that method. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks, Stefana. Thanks, Chris. Have a good day, guys.